I've studied the backswings of all the best players of all time, and there's three things that they all do. But I see a lot of people get obsessed with bringing the club too far inside or bringing the club too far outside. You know, if you look at a lot of these players, you're going to see everything in between there. There are players that brought it way inside, like Raymond Floyd. There are players that bring it way outside, like Jim Furyk. It's not one of the most important things. You can be successful with either one of those things, outside, inside, and everything in between. The key are these three pieces, and we're going to start from the ground up here. So the first piece lies in your legs, in your hips. So what we want to make sure that we're doing is that we are turning our hips back and around in the backswing. What I often see players who struggle with contact, coming over the top, shifting the weight to the lead side, all those things, they'll tend to slide off the ball quite a bit. So you can see I have this chair here. There's a very easy drill you can do to make sure that you're not sliding off the ball. So first set this up to where this chair is just barely not touching your hips. So have about a hand width between you and the chair there, and just take some practice swings. I'm just going to choke up on this club so I don't hit the ball. Just take some practice swings here where you're focusing on turning your hip away from that chair. Now you want to make sure that you're loading up into your trail leg. I don't want you to be going like this where you're loading up into your lead leg. I want you to be loading up, feeling pressure on the inside of that foot, and then turning that hip back and around. So you can see as I do that, my hips, you know, if I were to draw a line up from my ankle to the outside of my hip, I don't want to be going into that line, and that's what this chair is serving is. So I want to load up really nicely, go nice and slow, get in that good tilted position at the top, and then swing through into the full finish. Now just keep working up the speed from there in the practice swings. And then once you're able to get it in a practice swing and you can easily not touch the chair, now let's remove the chair and let's try to hit one where we make sure we get that same feeling. We make sure that we load up nicely and we don't slide the hips. So let's see if I can accomplish that there. Hit a good one here without sliding the hips and around. See if I can get some good power on this one. All right. Got some pretty good distance on that one. I'll definitely take that. So now what's the next piece? So that's piece number one, turning the hips back and around instead of sliding the hips. The next piece lies in our shoulders and how we tilt the shoulders. What I often see with people who struggle is they'll tend to turn the shoulders. They won't turn the shoulders very much, and or the shoulders will get very level at the top and they'll come up out of their posture. So when you do that, you're going to tend to stay up out of your posture and throw the club at the ball. You're going to tend to come over the top when you do that as well, because your shoulders are going to be very level, and your shoulders are going to want to turn level in the downswing instead of having the shoulders turn on a tilt and get that club on plane. So how do we get those shoulders to be nice and turn really well and then tilted as we go up to the top? Well, what we want to feel is what's called side bend at the top of the swing. That's what gets the shoulders to tilt. So if I have my hips level like this, and I tilt my left shoulder down, you can see that that's what's called side bend or tilt. That's what's going to allow me to get my shoulders nice and tilted down as I go up to the top. So an easy drill to do for that would be to set up, get in your normal setup position, and then take the club and put it high on your shoulders, on top of your shoulders here. I don't want it in your elbow pits or right on your chest. I want it high on your shoulders, so that way you can see where the shoulders are turning. And what you're going to do is you're going to turn and act as if there's a laser coming out of the end of this club. And I want you to turn and get the laser to be pointing, the butt end of the club to be pointing a little bit outside of where the ball would be. So if I do that, and go nice and slow at first, if I do that, that's going to look something like that. So I'm going to have a nice tilt down toward the ball. You can see I have a little bit of side bend here. What I'm also doing is I'm making sure that I'm getting a good turn with my shoulders as well. And then from there, I'm just going to go through into the full finish. So I'm going to keep building up the speed with that and get to where I can do it in a nice full speed, fluid swing there. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to take some practice swings where I'm going to try and replicate that same shoulder turn. I'm going to pause at the top and make sure I have that good tilt down at the top. So I'm going to get my good shoulder turn, get my good tilt down toward the ball, and I'm going to swing down into the full finish. Now I'm just going to continue that until I can do that in a nice fluid swing. So let me tee one up here again, and let's see if I can get one with good shoulder tilt here as I'm coming through the ball. That's going to allow me to swing nicely on plane, stay in my posture, and all that good stuff. So let's see if we can get another good one here. All right, another good one there. I'll definitely take that. So what's the last piece? What's the third piece to this key in the takeaway here, or in the backswing. And that key piece is getting a nice wide takeaway. So we've started from the ground up. We've gone with the hips. We want to turn our hips and we don't want to slide. We talked about our shoulders, how we want to turn our shoulders and tilt our shoulders down to ensure that we get the club working down on plane and stay in our posture. Now the last piece is in our arms, in our wrists, where we want to make sure that we're getting a nice wide takeaway as we're going back. What you don't see any good players doing is you don't see them lift up the club and hinge the wrist. But I see this all the time in my students, and it really robs you of a lot of power. So if I were to just hinge my wrists very quickly, and this is an exaggeration, most people aren't doing it quite this much, but I do typically see students really lifting up the arms quite a bit and not turning the body enough. And doing the other things will definitely make this easier as well. But if you watch here, if I just hinge my wrist quickly and lift up my arms, you can see if I get the club parallel, my shoulders have not turned very much, right? But now if I keep my wrists angling down, right, my thumb's out away from me, and I turn my shoulders as I go back, as opposed to lifting up my arms, when I get the first parallel, look how much more my shoulders have turned. And that's going to allow me to get a nice full turn as I go up to the top. It's going to make that so much easier. It also makes it easier to create lag in the downswing. If I hinge the club right away, I'm going to tend to want to cast the club as soon as I start the downswing. So if I get the club going out wide, I can much more easily create lag in the start of the downswing. So really, really powerful move here that you see all the best players doing. So what's an easy drill that we can do to make this happen? So what I want you to imagine is, again, where the butt end of the club is pointing. We want that butt end of the club to be pointing in toward us, to be pointing at our body for as long as we possibly can. Now, eventually, as we get it up here, it's going to be pointing out away from you. But if you turn it right away and you lift the wrist right away, it's going to be pointing out away from you right away. So we want to keep that butt end of the club pointing in toward us as long as we possibly can. So let's go nice and slow at first. And let's go to first parallel, keeping that club pointed in toward our body. So if you look from here, you can see that club is still pointing in toward my body. And then I'm going to continue to the top of the swing. Nice big shoulder turn, good tilt, good hip turn here. And I'm going to go through into the full finish. I'm going to keep doing that until I can continue to build the speed, build the speed, build the speed. Once I can do that in a full speed, full length swing on video, I check that on video. Now I'm going to tee up a ball here, and I'm going to try to replicate that same thing. So let's see if I can put it all together here. Let's see if I can get a good hip turn away from the ball. Let's see if I can get a good shoulder turn and tilt down. Let's say I'm turning the shoulders level. And let's see if I can get a nice wide takeaway on this one and set myself up for success here in the backswing. All right, so another good one there. If you get that backswing right, it makes things a lot easier. A good backswing sets up a good downswing, and a good downswing sets up a good impact. So now that we have these key pieces down in the backswing, what do we need to do in the start of the downswing to make sure that we're hitting it solid and consistent? Well, the biggest key here is getting this club shallowed out early, so getting it to where it's on plane early, and getting to where we're squaring up that face early as well as we're coming down. The reason why we want to do this is because if we don't, then we're going to tend to make compensations in the downswing to be able to hit a functional golf shot. So for example, let's say I have this club coming down steep, right? Well, I may stand up to get that club to drop underneath and be on plane now, and then throw from there. Well, I'm going to lose all my power when I do that. I'm going to have a hard time being consistent because everything is going to be based on timing when I do that. So it's much, much easier to get that club on plane, shallowing out as we're starting down, getting that face squared up as soon as possible. So that way I can just have it in the slot and I can just turn through that ball as hard as I want, and I know it's going to be going straight down the middle of the fairway. So this is what we refer to at Top Speed Golf as the anti-roll method. And we have a great video for you where Clay, the founder of Top Speed Golf, is going to go over that with you in just a second. So if you'd like to see that video, just stick around. You can see a free preview of that video, but if you'd like to see the whole video, all you have to do is click the iCard that's going to appear on your screen here in just a second, or you can click the link in the description below. Play well.
So here's the bottom line. If you've been taught to roll the club in the early downswing, that causes the shaft to get steep, and that steep club causes all your problems. Causes you to hit it way behind the big hitters, and way inconsistent with your quality of strike. So you're in the tall grass and the trees and the hazards all day long. Now the great news is this, there's really only two pieces that you need to know to fix all these problems. The first one is we need to learn the proper way to square up the club face. Instead of rolling the forearms and getting steep, there's another way that the pros do this. Once you learn this right way to square up the club face, then you can shallow out from the inside and everything starts to fit together. Now I'm going to teach you this right now in what I call the anti-roll method. You may also hear this called the motorcycle move or the tour twist, but let's walk through exactly how to do that. Now what I want you to do is go ahead and go kind of in the last parallel in the downswing. So here, I want my hips to go ahead and be opening up. I want my club to be parallel with the ground, and I want my hands to be in front of my right thigh. Now, when I take my grip, you're going to notice that when I do this, the club face is basically straight up and down. So if I'm looking at it from this angle, you'll see the face is straight up and down, and my logo of my glove is pointed out in front of me. Now from there,